Happy Friday, everybody. James Hancock here. I'm back to review the first 3 episodes of the new animated series Young Justice Outsiders, which is now available from the DC Universe app. I should mention right from the outset that I recently binged the 46 episodes from season 1 and 2, so my perception of the show will likely be quite different from someone who's been patiently waiting for years for the show to return ever since it was canceled due to disappointing toy sales. I went straight from watching the first 46 episodes right into watching the first 3 episodes of Outsiders, so for me it's just one long continuous story. But thankfully, in the years since the show's first cancellation, the show's massive popularity on Netflix led to its resurrection. I have my little brother Charles to thank for suggesting the show. He first mentioned the show to me years ago when he was like 8, so I mistakenly assumed the show was just for kids. But having now watched so many episodes in a row, I feel like I've read several years worth of a great comic title featuring a who's who of the best characters from the DC Universe. Back in the early 2000s, I was totally obsessed with the animated shows Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and I honestly didn't think that Warner Brothers Animation would ever again reach those heights. And while I still prefer Bruce Timm's visual language for any shows or movies that he's associated with, in terms of raw narrative and great character beats, I think Young Justice absolutely deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Justice League Unlimited. There was a lot of great stuff in the first 2 seasons, but I was totally caught off guard by how well the show pulled off the various romantic entanglements between the characters, in particular the one between M'gann and Superboy. While Season 2 Invasion I thought got off to a really rocky start, it became incredibly good by the end of the season with incredibly high stakes, great moments of conflict with no-win situations for certain characters, and there are also some incredibly stirring moments of self-sacrifice like we saw with Wally West. But now we have the first 3 episodes of Young Justice Outsiders to sink our teeth into, and for those of you who are wondering, the release schedule for the rest of the episodes will be as follows. Every Friday for the rest of the month, episodes will come out in bundles of 3, and then we'll get 4 episodes on January 25th. But for the second half of the season, you're going to have to wait until June, and it'll follow a similar release schedule. But what I like about the first 3 episodes so far is just how much of it is directly inspired by a storyline that I absolutely loved as a little kid. Batman and the Outsiders, which started in 1983 from writer Mike Barr and artist Jim Aparo, was an absolutely essential series from my childhood, and I can still vividly recall just how upset I was at age 7 when Batman felt compelled to resign from the Justice League of America in order to form a new group. But in that Batman is very much a minor character in the background in Young Justice. A lot of the ingredients of the story have been repurposed to fit into this ongoing saga, which obviously focuses on the much younger characters in the DC Universe. That said, I appreciate how the characters are allowed to age in this show, and this season picks up 2 years after the conclusion of Season 2. There's a new threat of a meta-human trafficking business kidnapping people against their will and then sending them into battle alongside parademons in far-flung places like Rann. But as soon as I heard the revised theme music to the show, I could tell that this season would have a much darker tone. The story has much more international political conflicts, with metahumans being used as assassins between nations. And very quickly we have a situation where our heroes are very much divided into 3 separate camps. We have the Justice League, which is now basically handcuffed by all these new rules and regulations of the United Nations. And then we have Batman's camp, which has resigned from the Justice League in order to operate more freely. But the focus on the show is on Dick Grayson and a few key allies like Tigress, Superboy, Black Lightning, who have banded together to try to take down the metahuman trafficking ring. So far, most of the story has taken place in the country of Markovia, the country where Prince Brio Markov, aka Geoforce, comes from. And so far, I'm really into it, in particular how Dick and his team are acting more like a covert op group than superheroes. They use Black Ops uniforms instead of their traditional costumes, and I've been impressed with the high stakes of the show, with multiple characters having already met their untimely demise. I also think this season is doing a better job of initially keeping the focus on a handful of characters. My big grievance with Season 2 is that in the first few episodes, the show kind of spun out of control, trying to tackle too many different storylines and too many different characters at once. So I think Warner Brothers Animation fans overall will dig this show, but if you've never watched any Young Justice at all before, I strongly encourage you to go back and start at the beginning. Like any really good superhero comic, this show is very heavy on continuity, and there are a lot of subplots that unfold over many, many years, and there's no denying that you will enjoy the show much more, having a strong understanding of what all these characters have endured so far in their adventures over the last 7 years at this point. But I think it was an excellent call to bring back this show as a way of beefing up the offerings on the DC Universe app while we wait for the live-action Swamp Thing and Doom Patrol. Having something new to look forward to on a regular basis is essential if that platform is going to continue to thrive and grow, and it's cool having some variety between live action and animation. Because honestly, I think animation is a much better medium for adapting comics than live action. I absolutely love live action superhero shows and I love live action superhero movies, but hand-drawn illustration has always been the essence of comics. So I think we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to Warner Brothers for this huge, heavy emphasis they've placed on animation for the last few decades. But as far as reviews and recaps are concerned, I'll likely come back at the mid-season finale to do another rant. But in closing, I just want to thank my little bro Charles for getting me into this show. As an aging comic book fan, I rarely get into new ongoing superhero series unless they're from a writer that I really love. But this show makes me feel like I've read a great classic run on par with anything Geoff Johns has cooked up in the 21st century. In any case, I think that's all I have to say for now. So if you enjoyed this review and reaction, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll definitely be reviewing a lot more stuff on the DC Universe app in the months to come. But if you want to talk about superheroes or comics or DC Universe or whatever, the best place to reach me is always on Twitter at Colbrax, and there's a link in the show notes below. But I can't thank you enough for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Hope everyone has an amazing weekend, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.